Hello and welcome to the Dragons Lair podcast, your home all things Dragons RFC and rugby in the region. I'm Jamie, and joining me as always is my co-host Gavin Thomas. How are we doing, Gav?
I'm very well, Jamie. I'm down with the youth this week. I've been on TikTok via the Rap TikTok account. I'll be
TikTok.
I'll be doing terribly choreographed dances and all sorts next. I tell you.
You really are done with the kids. You'll be getting on TikTok, Gav.
I'll become an influencer.
Okay, so you can find us on platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, and the Sports Social Network. And if you like what we do, please rate us, leave us a good review, as it all helps us to grow the pod. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say a couple of thank yous. I want to say thank you to Lee Calvert from the Blood and Mud podcast, who gave our David Buttress Q&A a shout out and a kind review. Thank you for that, Lee. And I want to say thank you to Mikey Harris from the Forbidden Love podcast, who in fairness has mentioned our pod a few times on his Forbidden Love podcast. I do appreciate that. So cheers, Mikey. And thank you to everyone else who has been sending us great feedback about the pod, and in particular that David Buttress Q&A. That's been very, very popular, Gav. A lot of feedback coming in from that. So
quoted in the Wales Online as well.
We even made Wales Online. Can you believe it? And they even included a link that goes straight to the episode. So thank you very much, Wales Online. That's much appreciated. Okay, so we've got another guest with us this week, and our guest is a former Welsh international who has clocked up almost 500 club appearances. He played for the likes of Pontypridd, Newport, Dragons, Ospreys, London Irish. He also won 64 caps for Wales, including 2 Grand Slams. It is, of course, Ian Gough. Ian, welcome to the pod. How are we doing?
Good. Yeah, good evening. All good. Yeah, it's good. I'm in from the bad weather out there. It's nice and warm in the house. So, where I want to be.
Excellent. Sounds good. Okay, then. So let's get into it. Let's start at the beginning. Do you want to tell us about your upbringing in Gwent and your journey into rugby and sort of how you became involved in the game?
Yeah, I was a late starter. So I grew up just my mum, my elder brother and sister in a little council estate in Cwmbran, in Coed, just by Hollywood School. It's my primary school. And then didn't have a rugby teacher in school, in primary school. So it was all football and cricket. So I played that. I used to be enthusiastic. I used to go out and I used to have a go at everything, but I wasn't very good at everything. I wasn't good at most things, but I'd have a go. All my mates played it, so I'd be out, doing all that sort of stuff. And brilliant on the BMXs, roller skates, all sorts of stuff. And then I think I was bored on a Sunday when I was, about 11, just as I was starting comp. And my dad sort of grabbed me by the cuff and said, "Right, off you go. We're going to the local rugby club." He was a big rugby enthusiast, played lower league rugby, and he sort of didn't drag me kicking and screaming, but begrudgingly, in my goalkeeper top and football shorts and boots, and dragged me to the local rugby club and had my first game in Cwmbran up the Abercarn Valley.
That's where I'm from. I'm from Cwmbran.
Right, okay.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah. And stuck from there, and then I was hooked, hooked in, and I went up to, we missed an age group. Cwmbran Minis was my initial team, and missed a couple of age groups there because of we just had lack of numbers. So I went up to Pontypridd United for a couple of years. When they had lack of numbers, when it went to youth rugby, then I came back to Cwmbran, and for the same reason, then joined Newport. My good mate from Cwmbran, Dale Byrne, scrum half, was playing for Newport Youth, and dragged me down the river to the city. And I never looked back. It was my chance, really, and I was lucky. I went across to Toronto and played for the Toronto Nomads when I was 18. I left school midway through my A levels. I wasn't enjoying my A levels. Went out and had a year out playing rugby out in Canada, in Toronto, and then came back just as the game went pro then in '95, and then managed, we had an exodus of departures from Newport that year with likes of Kevin Mosley and Mike Voyle and Gareth Rees and boys like that sort of all left. So it gave me a chance, really. So most of the second rows left. So I was in the hot seat, really, and they threw me in as a 16 and a bit stone soaking wet kid. And I think I played about 27 games that year. I think I had the most appearances, and got a few little awards in the end of season awards, and that started my senior career. And the next year I was full time, and I've had a blast. I've had a blast.
Yeah. So, who were your rugby idols growing up then? Was there any particular players that inspired you?
Yeah, I was, from far ashore. I was Zinzan Brook was the first sort of idol, only because he was a forward, which we were perceived to be donkeys, and piano movers, not players, and all those analogies. And he just had every skill in the book. He could reverse pass from a scrum. He could drop goals from 50 meters. He could put huge tackles in. He had everything, and lucky enough, managed to meet him a few times later in the career. And he actually came to coach. He actually came and did a few sessions with Andy Powell and Ian McIntosh, when McIntosh was here as well. So, it was great because he's my idol. So lovely to meet him. But on the Welsh front, it was the likes of, I grew up. I was born in Pontypool, so you had the Pontypool front five, the infamous pack that they had, especially the front row. And they were sort of immortal legends around the area. So, and Garen Jenkins was there. I remember watching them play in Pontypool Park against the All Blacks when I was about 14, and Garen was there, and the likes of Dale McIntosh and people like that I sort of looked up to, and my first game was the great Muddy Waters, David Waters' last game. So I think it was the 702nd or third game for Newport, and my first. Yeah. So I managed to step in with an absolute legend as well. So guys like that are. They're not made of the same stuff as most people, to play that many games.
No, absolutely. So you started your club career with Pontypridd, but I want to focus on your time with Newport. So
no, I started at Newport.
I thought you started with Pontypridd first, though.
No, in 96, 97, when the year Gareth Rees, Kevin Mosley, Voiley went to Llanelli. We had a mass exodus of players that just left. That year, I came straight out of Newport Youth, so I had 2 seasons in Newport Youth, straight into senior rugby. My first game was in the 95-96 season. I came on as a sub then with Muddy Waters against Llanelli and Straddy, and then the year later I started the first game of the season then against Caerphilly at home at Rodney Parade then in the 96-97 season. So I had 2 seasons with Newport before we got relegated. I signed for Pontypridd, but the relegation got bounced last minute because Swansea and Cardiff joined the English League. But I'd already signed for Pontypridd then, so I'd signed. I had 2 seasons with, saw my contract out there, and then Tony Brown revolution hit Newport, and I came back as soon as I could see some amazing things were happening, and to come back to my home club was amazing then. So I was back by 2000.
Was there always that kind of draw for you in terms of, being a Gwent boy wanting to play for Newport? Was there always that? Because, you had 2 spells at Newport and at Dragons.
Yeah, it was my club. It always means more when you play for your home club. You represent the people that you see every day in the street. It's a little bit disjointed sometimes when you play for a faraway club. You go home, you're not immersed in the locality and just the flavour of the people around. So Newport was it was a special place to me. It was my first chance, and the youth rugby coming through that system, and still chat with some of the boys now. We've got a WhatsApp group with some of the Newport youth boys back in the day, and I had some great tours as well. We toured out in Osnabrück in Germany, and with them, which was I had to regrow my hair and eyebrows after that one, but it was super, and that's why it was so great then to finish off where I started. So that was always an ambition. I tried to re-sign for the Dragons before I signed for London Irish, and then I failed a medical, believe it or not. Failed a medical on my heart. I had a heart issue, not too dissimilar from Alan Jones's, I think, that he's just gone through. So I failed that medical, ended up signing for London Irish as a stopgap. And then when the Dragons saw I played a load of games for London Irish, then they started inquiring again. So it was great to be able to finish off where I started. So it went full circle. And I was talking to Dan Lydiate last night. I was at school with Dan. And he said the same thing. It's looked great for him to start off with Dragons, and then go full circle and end up where he started.
Oh, okay. I apologise for that. Yeah, it's my fault. I looked at Wikipedia, and never trust Wikipedia. I honestly thought you started with Pontypridd. I do apologise for that. Yeah, my own fault. I'll do better research. But what I was going to say was, you made 139 appearances for Newport, and you played for the club at the time when it was really thriving. So attendances were high at Rodney Parade. Tony Brown, if you remember, was pumping a lot of money into the club. and you playing with the likes of Gary Teichmann, Percy Montgomery, Shane Howarth, Bobby Skinstad, etc. What are your memories and highlights of playing for that Newport team? Because I'm guessing that was pretty special, wasn't it, at the time when Newport RFC really were thriving?
Oh, do you know what? It was incredible because it was just the whole buzz around the place. It was, and it
Yeah.
wasn't just what we were doing on the field. And we had a fantastic team, and we just had a great camaraderie as well. You know, we had a lot of boys all living pretty close. We socialised together. You know, the great Rod Snow, and Simon Rowley. I still speak every now and then on social media with Simon, and he was just such a character. You know, such a presence. You know, and I loved playing with Warriors. You know, Warriors. You know, like Snowy and Simon and. You know, Gary Teichmann's reputation, you know, he was incredible. But, you know, Peter Buxton, he was a Warrior as well. They were superb players. You know, we had a great team, Adrian Goughy and Jimmy Richardson, Paul Young up front in hooking. You know, they were really good guys. You know, we had a real good time. And it was great to be back. It was great to be, to start tasting some success because it was is what we deserved here, what we wanted. And we worked really hard, but it was off the field as well. That was impressive there. Like, so I think it was Phil Davis of Treorchy fame, of the Dream fame, came across and started running the community game, and it just breathed life into the place. And the epitome for me was the game we played Bath in the European Cup, and they put a temporary stand. I don't think Rodney Parade has ever held as many people. I might be wrong at that, but that night I'm sure. We were above the health and safety standards. Speaking to Mark Jones, the now stadium manager, Mullet as we call him, and I think we were probably about 2,000 people above the allowed gate that night. It was what an atmosphere that was. It was incredible, and what a win against a very good quality Bath side as well. So, it was games like that you remember, like the likes of. I think we beat Toulouse at home. That's huge. We had some really tough games against Leinster. We didn't quite get across the line against Leinster, but they were really epic games. And if it wasn't for the floodlights going out in the corner, we had them on the rack, and the floodlights it almost gave them a breather, a reprieve, and they just come and they snuck the win. But we had some big performances going up to Newcastle and winning up there, and it was a real sort of vibe around the place. It was a great place to be.
Yeah. So you had 2 spells with the Dragons and you made over 100 appearances in total. How do you look back at your time at the Dragons team? Because, yes, there were some highs, but I'm guessing there were a lot of lows as well. Is there anything that stands out to you from a Dragons perspective?
Yeah, I think the way we started it, I think we got a WhatsApp group with the original Dragons boys, if you want, or many of us. And we still speak quite regularly now. And like I said, Pete Sidoli and Kerry Sweeney, Jamie Ringer and things, we organise reunions and things like that where we meet up every now and then, which is great. And that first year, nobody gave us a chance. And that was a great year for the Dragons because nobody gave us a chance. Amalgamation with Ebervale and everything that went on, the controversy and the infighting that went on with that. So it was bored. We lost a lot of players that it went because of the transition and about foreign players or international players and things like that. So it was a real upheaval to start with. But then Mike Ruddock and Clive Griffith came in and they were superb. It took some getting used to them because we had our preconceived ideas, if you want, because Mike came down from Ebu and he was a blinder boy. And it was the whole sort of set to with the Ebervale. Is it the Harris brothers? I can't remember the owner's name, but the Oasis boys. But he was superb. He gelled us as a team that year, and we played some really good stuff. And Clive was fantastic. He was brilliant in. He was amazing with his defensive roles as well. And and they sort of molded us as a team. They were 2 different characters, had 2 really different attributes as coaches and managers. But they really did get the sort of most out of us that year. I think we were going to Leinster with a chance of winning the league. We were out playing in Lansdowne Road.
Yeah.
And I think we needed a bonus point win. And I think we'd had a bonus point before half-time. We'd scored 4 tries. But I think we just lost out. We lost out in a high-scoring game. And I think Ulster beat the Scarlets. And I think we ended up coming 3rd. But, to go into that last game with a chance of winning the league, was insane, for a team of, that we almost got the offshoots from, wherever the club didn't want. And, it just proves if you coached well and you sort of manage that environment and you sort of get the pitch of the boys, then you can do some amazing things. You can get the most out of the playing base you got. And again, because we were such a close knit unit as well, we enjoyed each other's company, and that was a really good season.
You're talking there about the period when it became the amalgamation of Ebervale and Newport and everything. Do you think, Ian, that kind of Dragons have ever really caught the attention of everyone in Gwent? Because I'm an Ebervale lad, I'm a rare thing in a Dragons, a Valleys Dragons fan. Do you think Gwent has ever really taken the Dragons to their bosom properly?
No. I still speak to some real diehard black and ambers, and I get it to an extent. I do get it, and it's hard. It's almost that generational thing. We're so tribal in Wales. We go to battle against our local villages, and I played up in Pontypool. I played in Newport, and I'm from Cwmbran. I'm in the middle, so I understand how tribal we can be and how hard it is for some people to accept, and that's half the thing. That's why the likes of an Ian McIntosh, for example, a coach there. He came in with such enthusiasm and such charisma, and everyone just believed in what he was coaching, in his ethos and his strategy, and everyone bought into it. Now, what they've struggled to do with Gwent, with the Dragon side of things, is just encapsulate the whole area, and it's a tough job to do. I think when when he put it into regions, when the decision was made, it was that it needed a huge strategy to be able to connect and engage fans from all sides of the valleys that have warred against each other for years. We all put our Welsh jersey on when the Welsh matches are on, but it's different when it comes to club rugby and local rugby. So that was a thing. They rushed into the regional game without the foresight and strategy of how will we make this work and how will we engage the locality. So it was a big experiment, but we're still here now.
Yeah, and we've not really moved on, have we? It's there's still people talking about wanting a Valleys club and all. It started badly, and I don't think it's ever really kind of come together properly. But for you as a Gwent boy and as someone who's played for Newport and for the Dragons, what do you think defines Gwent rugby?
I just think it's a real steel workman-like sort of performances. And I think you get that in the valleys. And I'm from Cwmbran's a valley, but it's not really a valley. As soon as you go up to Pontypool and, Blenavon and Bryn Mawr and Ebervale and, Nandeglo, all those up and down the valleys there, it's just tough people, like good people, and just tough working class people. And when I signed for Pontypridd, I had I think Cardiff, there was an option to go to Cardiff as well. Alex Evans was coaching there, but it wouldn't have suited me. Cardiff wouldn't have suited where I came from and what I was about as such. And they had a great team, but it wouldn't have suited me personally. So Pontypridd, was much more, that Valley club was much more my fit than a city club like that. So it was, I think that the people of Gwent, they're just hard-edged people that have, that have done it the hard way as well. And it comes from industry. I remember when Tommy Turner took us over, and he took us on a bus trip up to the mines, up the Newbridge Valley, Cwmcar, Newbridge Valley, up to Big Pit, and showed some of the foreign boys what we were about as Gwent men, and what we'd gone through in the industry and the graft that went in, as people were brought up over the generations. So I think, that's what I thought Gwent rugby was all about. Likes of the Pontypool sides, they were tough, abrasive, hard men, hard teams, and that's where I think that's what encapsulated Gwent. I think that's that first year when Mike Ruddock been on board. It's sort of because he was a North Gwent boy.
Yeah.
He mashed us together really well, and it was he had a tough. He did have a tough ask to start with, because we took some. He had to win over a few boys that were very sceptical of him, and he did that. I still speak to Mike now. Actually, I still see him across in Swansea when I pop across to Ospreys games and things like that, and he encapsulated that because he was a tough Gwent boy himself.
I think for me, Gwent rugby is about that tight five, kind of front props, second rows like yourself. And I think, for want of a better phrase, Gwent rugby creates hard bastards. Now, you're a hard bastard, an exceptionally hard bastard, and a really awkward character on the field. Do you think there's many second rows like you anymore, Ian? Because, Dragons would kill for a player like you right now.
Oh, God, yes. We absolutely would.
Yeah. But are there any out there, any players like you, that bring a bit of dog to the fight?
Well, do you know, I thought Alan Wade epitomised it throughout his whole career.
Yeah.
He was, to me, he was a number 6, really. I thought he was a blindside. He was a back rower, but he just had the size and shape of a second row as well. So he brought sort of back row sort of athleticism, if you want, in there. But he was a pain. He was he'd be climbing at the. I like Will Rowlands. I just it was a shame when he left the Dragons, because I think he's the real deal. He's just so big, and he's powerful with the ball, and I liked it. Like Jake Ball was sort of out of my sort of mold as well. He probably carried the ball a bit better than me. Jake Ball, he's a good player, but really good. But then again, we've lost the legacy with someone like Jake Ball. As good as he was, but it's a quick hit, and then he's away. I think he's in Japan now or something like that. And you don't see or hear from him again. Whereas, it's the local boys coming through that, it's there's. Because we're all different characters, Again, the Ospreys, it was all different. You had an Ian Evans, and who was a great line-out forward, and he was a 5. But it's that abrasive 4, I think you're talking about, aren't you? That sort of workman, abrasive, ruck hitting, unsung hero sort of 4 that, I guess they're hard to produce. And the way the game's going, it's becoming, not so much a type 5. It's it's all at the front row. I don't think it'll ever change. I think they've got to do the coalface stuff, and that's what it is. They've got to be good. They've got to be crack at what they do. But then the back 5 have almost become like a back row unit, because they're getting so athletic. They're like like the Corey Hills and the Andrew Coombses as such. They're all back rowers. Say Adam and Jones, to me, was a 6. It's just becoming like Mario Itoje. They're pretty much 6s. That are playing 6s and 8s that are playing in the second row, because they're still 6'5" plus. So the dynamic has changed a little bit, but I don't think the front row will ever change. I think they're coalface, they're the coalface boys, and what they do is incredible. If it's not, if you don't have a good front row, as good as the second row can be, you can give as much weight as you can, but if that front row aren't technically good enough and strong enough, then you're on a losing battle.
I have that argument with the front row I play with, like I blame everything on them, but
I don't. The problem is I'd never blame a front rower, because they could just stare back at me and they could crush my ears with a single hip glance. So I always try to be really nice to the front rowers, and I still don't know the language. I sat around like Kerry Jones and Adam Jones and Hibbard, and they would go into their front row talk about getting in the hole and popping them here, and I just go, right, okay. I sort of knew. I knew I could feel, I could feel it more than knew what they were talking about. I could feel it with the seat of my pants. But they sit at the back of the bus, and they're a different breed completely. They just want to talk about scrummaging for about 39 hours a day.
And I think that some of that's been lost in the game, hasn't it? There are tight heads out there now who perhaps aren't as adept at scrummaging, but very good in the loose. But in my head, a tight head doesn't have to move; they just have to hold up their corner of a scrum.
Yeah, but do you know what? You only have to see. I commentated on the Dragons game against the Sharks on the weekend, and they started off really well up front. They were doing really well, which I was, it was good. Leon Brown, he started, and I thought he started really positively. But then towards the end of the game, the Sharks got the upper hand, and it just proves to me like how games can be won and lost, and it can still be won easily up front. And the scrum penalties that they were getting, and then all of a sudden kick into the corner, gaining penalties. That sort of front row weight, you just can't combat it. If they're stronger than you and they get those penalties, you just can't get out your own half anymore. Every scrum ends up being a penalty or poor ball, and the basics. No matter how much the game progresses, if you haven't got that, you'll lose more games than you'll win.
And it's a squad game now, isn't it? It's not just your front 3, it's your front 6, because you need 3 guys who can come on and do the same job as well.
Oh, for sure. Like, I remember playing Leicester and with the Ospreys, this was. And I remember it was Duncan Jones, Adam Jones and Hibbard, and I think Paul James was coming, he was either on a bench to come on. And I remember how hard, how much work they put into that week of training, about technically assessing who they were playing against and how they were going to, get the upper hand or just hold their own, just get enough strength for, just get enough sort of, parity and just above to get the ball back. And we did that for about 65 minutes. And then they brought on, I can't think who came on for us, but Castro Giovanni came on for them. Completely different character, different way of scrummaging. And we were tired and bang, just destroyed us. And then I think we ended up drawing the game. we should have won it. We were in the driving seat, but then as soon as he came on, our scrum just he just splintered us. He was just, so strong, but a different. We prepared for the others, but you can't prepare for everything, and he just came on. That depth was incredible,
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the Ospreys then. You touched on the Ospreys. You had a lot of success there. You won a few league titles, and you played in the so-called Galacticos era of the Ospreys. And you were playing with the likes of Marty Holler, Jerry Collins, Justin Marshall, and a lot of the Welsh internationals. So many star names during that period. But who were the players, Ian, that you enjoyed working with the most there?
Oh, do you know what? They were brilliant. They were guys. Like Marty Holler was a great bloke. They were really good people. Really down to earth. Justin Marshall was different gravy. Justin Marshall, he was a superstar. And the backs are different anyway. The forward centre, we do bother with the backs, but just for the fact of how you train and how you train as a forwards, we're hitting lumps out of each other all week and watching the backs do the little kicks and and just looking at their kicks. Oh no, I didn't like that so much. And where they're absolutely nailing each other and head to head scrummaging. But the likes of Alan Wynne-Jones coming through, I think he's been superb. He's been a talisman for Welsh rugby. The likes of Adam Jones was a kid that was told he was too fat. And he was being brought off after 20 minutes in internationals, which was humiliating, and turned it round, just by sheer grit, will, and want to win. A Hibbard who's come from the tough end of the sticks in Stanfields in Port Talbot, tough background, and came through and obviously played for the Dragons as well, and a real character of the game, and just Duncan Jones, blind Gwynfi boy, top guy, a very light, loose head, but had to be really wily about it and really technically good because he was up against such big, much bigger guys. But it was rippled with talent coming through. Like Steve Tandy was coming through, and he was like third choice at times, and he was a good player. I remember playing against him against me. And he's turned into a very good coach. And we just had you could play two different teams and still be really competitive no matter where you went, and wherever you went in Europe, you were going there expecting to be in touch or win, and that's the hard thing, because sometimes I remember if you didn't have that strength and depth, you go to the likes of Toulouse and you think, oh god, or Perpignan, and I remember going to Perpignan with the Dragons and thinking, oh, this like a juggernaut coming at us. It was a big ask, and you did everything you could just to stay in touch on the scoreboard. Whereas at the Ospreys at that time, we had so much depth that you were bringing on internationals. I was coming off, Ian Evans was coming on, and things like that. Young Justin Tipuric was coming through. You had the likes of Marty Holler there, and Philo Tiatia, who was an absolute warrior as well. So, we were rippled with sort of talent, but then probably underachieved because we lost the Barretts in the quarterfinals of Europe, and that was our big chance for a run. We won the league that year. We beat Munster away and Ulster away, and we ended up winning the league. But that was our year in Europe. But games were so finely balanced, and if you don't take your opportunities when you could, then it slips away from you. So that was one that got away from us that year.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Ospreys had a great squad, and it still baffles me that the Ospreys have never won a European quarterfinal. That was the one hurdle the Ospreys could never overcome, and they had so many brilliant players. That was just the one part, wasn't it, that you guys just couldn't overcome for some strange reason.
Yeah, we did it with Lynn Jones. We played Saracens up in Watford, I think they were playing at that time. And we beat them by 30, 40 points in the Millennium Stadium about a month before. So we go into the game of confidence. It was a Sunday game, and we blew it. Didn't turn up with the right mindset, and we blew it. And again, that was a golden chance as well. So it happened countless times. But it was like the Holy Grail, the European semi-final, to get to that, and we just never, for whatever reason, say the mindset, there's a good bit of psychology around it all, but we never managed to connect it.
No, okay. So let's talk about Wales then, in your Wales career. So you had 64 caps for Wales. You make your debut against South Africa in Pretoria in 1998. And yes, in case our listeners were wondering, it was the infamous 96-11 record defeat to the Springboks. Can you tell us more about that day? Because that must have been a really bittersweet moment for you, to say the least. On the one hand, you've got your cap, it's a proud moment, but then you're involved in Wales's record defeat. Can you tell us what that was like?
Yeah, do you know what? It was a tough tour, but it was my first tour, so I was made up, and we almost didn't get on the bus because there was a wrangle about the union. There were so many players that dropped out, and I think they just they cut all the match fees, or they cut the sort of tour fee in half. It was left a bit of a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths that we were travelling out there undercooked, because we had so many players that didn't come for whatever reason. And then it was monetary wise, they were, you were being sort of penalised for it, which, you were going out there facing, the world champions. But it was a big tour. We played Zimbabwe and Harare first game out. And then we had 3 or 4 games, sort of playing their regional teams, and then a test match right at the end against a huge Box side. And, little, game by game, we just kept losing players with injuries and parachuting players in. But it gave me my chance. And I was behind. I probably started that second or third choice, second row, behind the starting 2, and worked my way in. Right, like Mark Jones was on that tour, so I had to sort of I had to get over Mark Jones as well. And luckily, he had an ingrowing hair in his bum, the base of his spine. So we said his arse went. His arse went. He went back, but he was a tough boy. Mark.
Is that the Neath player, Mark Jones from
yeah,
Tredegar?
Yeah, big Scooby. He's just brought a book out. Apparently, it's really good. But it's why I've got a lazy eye, because he hit me up in Evervale and I had to pay admission to get back in the ground. He knocked me out cold. So he gave me a proper clamp.
He's another tough Gwent character, isn't he?
He was teak. He was teak. He was he hit me, and crikey Moses, I didn't know what bus it was. So it was a big one. But yeah, that tour was, and then going into the tour, I think Kingsley Jones was captain. He came in as a late inclusion. Stephen Jones got his first of his 102 caps, I think, in that game.
That's right, yeah. I forgot Stephen Jones, yeah.
Yeah, Daichlu was captain that game. Mark Taylor, obviously, he's from Pontypool. So we had a good few Gwenties in there. But it was just a massive tall order. I think we went up. I think we were like 7-0 up at one point. So we were like, right, call the game off. That's it. Job's done.
Stop the count.
And it was just they played the song "Tub Thumping." I get knocked down, but I get up again. Well, we knew all the words off by heart by the end of the game, because they scored, I think, 13 or 14 tries. I think they scored, but I think it was 15 tries in all. So it was, and they were going for the 100. And I think Daichlu hadn't come on for it. I think it was his first cap. And he was keen as mustard. We've been chasing shadows all day, and these huge Box, and likes of Percy Montgomery and Robbie Fleck and guys like that. And then we wanted to slow the game down, but Dai come on, and he was taking quick tap penalties. And I'm like, Dai, slow the game down, man. They're trying to score under, we're knackered. We'd be trying to tackle them for the last 80 odd minutes. But it was great. My dad flew out there. My dad managed to find out, because it was the caretaker coaches, because it was supposed to be Mike Ruddock that was coaching that trip. And they couldn't agree terms last minute. So Lynn Howells and Dennis John took over who were the Pontypridd coaches. So I was signed, funny enough, that year. That's why I signed for Pontypridd. So I'm not sure they put pressure on me, but I came back and signed for Ponty. But it was just those games too far. Having those 3 games in the middle, I think we played the emerging Box, Natal, Bhutan Falcons, and Borders, and lost players every time we got injuries, and we were just left so threadbare at the end. We had a good start in Boyd, but then, as you say, as soon as subs started going on, we just weakened, and it was a big loss. And I just thought, right, I'm not going to get picked for Wales again. Then that's it. It's still the record defeat. We haven't lost by that again. So that's an infamous day that I still carry that. But Graham Henry came in, and it started a bit of a revolution in Wales then. And even though it blipped a couple of years into his tenure, it forced Sir Tasker Watkins, who was the chairman at the time, to sort of take action and reassess where we were, because we weren't as good as we thought we were, maybe.
Well, why do you think you had more caps? Because lots of guys who played in that game didn't really, Dai Llewellyn didn't have really another bite of the cherry, did he? What is it you think that you had that kept you being selected in Welsh squads for quite a long time?
I think it was a bit of perseverance. It was just a bit of. I think I did get a lot of caps in the end, but behind Rob Howley. I think he was
in squads, wasn't he? Yeah, he was in squads, but wasn't always getting it. Yeah.
And then Dwayne Peel came and took over from him then on the bench, but and then first choice. But I just think I had a bit of a resilience. I just had a bit of not chip on my shoulder, but I came from a little council estate in Cwmbran. And I think I always played out of a bit of, right, sod them, I'm going to knock him off his perch. So anytime there's a second row in my way, I'd be like, right, I'm coming for you," and that was my motivation. I wanted to play for Wales, and I'd have to, whoever I had, knock off the perch, and it was tough because you had like the Craig Quinnell, that was a big ball carrier. He was probably limited as a line out forward in that area, but he was a big ball carrier and a big presence around the field, and it was those sort of guys. And like Chris Wyatt was a different position, but it was like Brent Cobain came into the frame a few years later, and I had to try and knock him off the perch, and it was all those you just had to make the jersey my own, and I never wanted to give up on it, even when I fell out with Steve Hansen, and I had a couple of years in the wilderness. Mike Rudd Rudd's got back in, but then I think because I'd sort of probably been a bit too loose-lipped in the press after being dropped by Hansen and Brent Cobain being introduced, then I had I had to overcome a reputation of maybe I whinged a bit, when I whinged and moaned when I didn't make the 2003 World Cup. So I almost signed for Biarritz. I almost went out to France thinking, right, that's it. And it was almost the petulant, right, that's it. I'm buggering off. But I stayed and stuck at it basically, and thought, well, there was a chance I was going to play for Wales. I'm going to stay here and try and play for Wales as long as I possibly can. So, get up and down, even under Rudd. So I managed to get back in eventually under Rudd's 2005. Played a bit part in that Grand Slam, which was incredible. And then, really had to get myself in that team, which I managed to do. And then the Gareth Jenkins era, and everything. We had loads of different things. We had Granny Gate that happened. We had
I remember.
we had the Granny Gate incident with Brett Singleton and Shane Howarth. Then the Ruddock Gate. We had Graham Henry when Graham Henry and Steve Black left. Under the clouds, and so there was so many times where I just thought, oh God, this isn't gonna go well. This is gonna be another 80s era for us, where we just don't get any, just as we started getting success, something else crazy would happen. And then Gatland came in and stabilized everything really, and luckily I managed to play a couple of years under that golden era.
Yeah. So what was it like playing under Warren Gatland then? And then is Shaun Edwards as scary as he seems?
Yeah, you just don't know how to read Shaun. He's bonkers. He's good because he's a bit of an enigma. He's you just didn't know where he was coming from at times, and he could be brilliant. He's one of the boys because he top player in his day, but then he just had that real hard edge and that deep look and stare, and you just didn't know where you were. And he's like, if you upset him, he's gonna butt me. He's gonna put the elbow on me. So he was good because he had that enigma. You didn't know where you were with him. You couldn't get in the comfort zone, put it that way. Same with Gatland. You couldn't get in the comfort zone because you didn't quite know how to read him. You didn't quite know where to push his buttons. So you're always living in that little bit of fear. And they were great in installing confidence in you, but they were quite tough. There's a lot of tough love that went on there. And he just made us believe in ourselves again. And he had the same players that Gareth Jenkins had, but a lot of it was confidence and belief, and he just set up a really, really good environment there. And there was no outs. There was no outs to no shortcuts and things like that. They were on you all the time, but it was fun as well. You could have a beer and probably too many beers at times because the boys used to get into a bit of trouble, like Ala, Andy Powell and gang. But we enjoyed each other's company.
Yeah. You all remember that golf cart incident, don't we? Oh dear. Right, so as I mentioned earlier, you was involved in 2 Grand Slams, but what other highlights do you have playing for Wales here? And any particular games or memories that stand out to you during your caps, 64 caps?
Yeah, well, the epitome, there was loads of good ones. We beat Australia, that was amazing. I think we beat Australia twice, and I think I drew against them once. That was great. I could never got the elusive South Africa game. We came close a few times, and only once I played against the All Blacks, which is shame. Is when they did the haka in their changing rooms. As a protest. So, huge games. Beating England away in Twickenham, huge. I'd been there and played against their 2003 World Cup winning team there, and had 50, 60 points put on us. Home and away. So beating those away is amazing. Going away to Ireland and winning is the biggest game that I had. Just purely because it all lined up. It was my 50th cap against France in the Grand Slam deciding game in the Millennium Stadium under Gatland. We'd just been dumped the year before. We got dumped out of the World Cup by Fiji in the group stage. I got dropped after that, so I didn't think I was going to get back in again. But Gatland sort of I'd signed for the Ospreys. He picked a load of Ospreys for the first game, like 12 or 13 Ospreys.
That's right,
And then we beat England away, which was incredible. And then we just went on this run of confidence. And then I led Ray Gravel's girls out, who were the mascots on that day in Cardiff for my 50th cap. So led the girls out, and then we won a Grand Slam. I played every game.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really beat that. You know, it was that consistent
No.
string of games. We played some really good rugby, and it was a really good sort of Grand Slam after being, the embarrassment of being, dumped out of the World Cup by Fiji.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. So, as you know, Ian, Welsh Rugby is going through a difficult time at the moment due to the budget and squad cuts. Now, Ospreys are the best team in Wales by some distance, but from what you've seen, what have you made of the regions this season, in particular the Dragons? How do you feel about how the regions are progressing in difficult circumstances?
Yeah, do you know, it is difficult circumstances. I don't know to put my finger on the Dragons, what's going on there, because they've had multiple coaches now, and it's just you just lack consistency. It's just getting that consistent. And I guess you need a depth in the squad to be able to be consistent like that. But it just they raise for certain games. Like they play the Ospreys, beat the Ospreys, and they've got a good tradition of that over the years. They beat the Scarlets this year. But then beat the Ospreys and then go out to the Sharks and have 60, 70 points per them, whatever it was. So it's just the bounce and consistency, which is really hard. And it must be tough as a supporter at times because.
Tell us about it. It really is.
I get it. I'm in the stand and commentating. I'm willing, with the best will in my world, to for them to get over the line and connect with it. But then it's frustrating sometimes. Some of the game management at times, especially the Sharks game today, it was frustrating to commentate because I wanted them to win and I wanted them to do well, and they started the game so well, and they fluffed that try early on, and then they just slowly fell apart at the seams. And it's hard, but what we pride ourselves on early on in the Dragons and Newport as well, that we had to be a really, really hard team to beat at home. If they beat us at home, that would be almost like the French mentality. It would take something. We would come out. We were really out of those stalls, and we were climbing to people because we wanted to at least win our home games, and then whatever away games we could pick up, then brilliant, But we wanted to make Rodney Parade a fortress, and that was our whole mindset. But that seems to have slipped a little bit, and it's not as easy as that. We'll make it a fortress and just come out with a lot of Tartan and Ra and things like that. But it's that's the thing that hits me, and that points sometimes to an environmental issue. If the performances are inconsistent like that, it's sometimes that's part of your environment because and I'm not saying that is the case, but that's what it would point to. I don't know for sure, but it's a shame. And like the Cardiff, they've got a lot of players that have young players that have been introduced in the squad. Funny enough, it's the Ospreys that have got the least, have got a very small number selected, considering that they've actually put some big performances in and they've been beating some decent teams.
There's a lot of injuries, isn't there, for the Ospreys?
They would dominate that Wales squad, I think, if they didn't have so many injuries. Yeah, they've been quite unlucky, haven't they, with injuries? But it's been a difficult time.
So Scarlets are really struggling. They look like the confidence is drained at the Scarlets. I've commentated on them this year, and Dwayne's got a lot to do there because and that's a hard thing to recoup when a side loses a bit of confidence, and losing becomes a habit, like winning becomes a habit when you're confident.
That's
so
right,
and I think they're in that mode. Cardiff, they're playing some exciting rugby at times, and they're putting some nice stuff together. But again, when they come up against a heavyweight like a Harlequins or a Racing, and it just again, it exposes a bit of a lack of depth in there. So there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of I think the union I think there needs to be not less funding. I think there needs more funding. If they want the game to survive properly, they need to fund it properly. And that's you can't you don't run a Formula One team on diesel, do you? You've got to put the best stuff in there if you want to compete. And that's the thing. You don't win leagues or compete on the tightest of budgets, unless you've got some an exceptional coach with an exceptional environment there, and with the best strategist in the world, and I think we've got that at the minute.
And I think the Irish sides, people talk about the systems and the coaching setup, but they are funded twice as well as the Welsh Regions are, so that's probably going to have an input as well. We're going to drag in the scrap in to find guys playing in the Curry Cup, and they're bringing in World Cup winners. It's
that's just where we are right now, isn't it?
The depth, the Irish. The Irish regions have been, they've got a very good system out there. Again, but their regions, that's what they've always done. So their regions have been born from years and years of work. So us, we've been thrown into this. Our club rugby. I think that's how it. Again, it's too late now. We're 20 years in, but it's it was just super clubs the way I thought it should go. Specific clubs covering Wales, but we are where we are. It's a tough one to climb out of. But I definitely think the union they haven't helped over the years, and I think and just the way they run at times, and they're going through a tough time themselves, and they have to try and reinvent themselves. But I think I'm sure there's enough money there because there's so many the management and everything, the union, there's a lot of people taking wage and taking money there, and if it means streamlining that to get more funding towards the regions, because the rugby is your bread and butter, and that's where everything comes from. So I think everything should be prioritized to that, not other things. But easier for me to say like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, you're spot on. I want to talk to you, if I may, about concussion. Okay, so you are one of 300 odd rugby players that are suing the sports governing bodies over concussion. Now, you recently gave an interview to Wales Online explaining all this, but for those who haven't read it, do you just want to explain why you are taking legal action and what's your experience with concussion in the game?
Yeah, you've seen it over the years, and it's one of those things. And it's a perception with people as well, because the perception that I've often faced is, well, you get paid lots of money. You knew what you were getting into. You knew. But it's not that. I dislocated my shoulder playing in the cup final when we won the cup final with Newport in the Milan side against Leith, and then I had a scan, I had a surgery, I had 2-3 months of physio. I got back. I had to hit certain targets and strength targets and flexibility targets and scrums and liners before I was allowed to play. Now with a concussion, you could have a serious concussion like that, and after a couple of weeks or whatever, it might. You might not see any, visibly, you can't see the effects of that with the shoulder. You can't lift your arm. But with the head, you might be having headaches or blurred vision and things like that, which are signs. They're the offshoots of, yes, I've got an injury here that needs healing. And if that wasn't looked after properly, and that when players are made or pushed to play and peer pressure to play and manipulate the play, then they're playing players through brain injuries and on top of injuries, which get worse. If I played the next week with a dislocated shoulder, with a massively torn shoulder, then the likelihood you're 10 times more likely to rip that shoulder and cause permanent damage. And the same with the brain injury. So, I don't think people have been very grown up about it over the years, how they've dealt with it. And if research and things are telling us that, it was known, there was knowledge about the danger of concussions and repetitive head knocks in training and in matches and things like that for a long time, yet nothing was actioned to make it safer. And that's all I want. I got 3 boys, 3 young lads, and I love the game of rugby, and it gave me a lot. And I just want them to be able to enjoy it without the fear of having dementia when they're 40 years old. Absolutely. And not remembering their kids' names, and and having their standard of life degraded to a massive amount, where it could have been avoided. It could have been made that little bit safer and protocols put in, which you can still enjoy the game. And we know you're going to get concussions in a game. And I'm going into a game when I can get a couple of concussions a year at least. You knew it, but it's how that's allowed to heal and to make sure that you're cared for and treated as a human being. Not just a win at all cost machine,
And your World Rugby knew where the risks were and weren't communicating it. It's all sporting bodies that it's. I think the attitude that people knew what they let themselves in for is either it's foolish or deliberately obtuse. Because no one did. I've played rugby all my life. I'm far too old to still be playing now, but. Kind of, at least now I think there is a degree of care around concussions, and I think you must have seen that shift, Ian, because I can remember when I was younger, the case of you'll be fine, don't worry about it, but now it's moved on, hasn't it?
Well, you'd hope, and I'll give an anecdotal story. that playing for Wales, it's in the Lions year, so Gatland was away, so it was a Gatland era. So one of the guys we kicked off, we played America in Chicago. The ball got kicked off. Our number 8 was Ryan Jones, the Roger Stone boy, high cross boy.
Yeah,
caught the ball and got hit by he was a Samoan American number 8 that didn't break stride, just hit him like a freight train, and he was knocked out before he hit the floor. It's his 4 seconds in the match. It was like a Tyson knockout, and as he was hitting the deck, I remember motioning over to the physios and the medical staff, almost like he's done. He's done. That's him. He's out. He is out. And he played on for about 20 minutes, and he was so visibly out. He was boof. He was, he got up. He was shaky, and I want to say it was one of Sam Warburton's first games. I might be wrong there, but we had a back row came.
I think he did tour. He did tour on that one, didn't he? That kind of US tour.
I think he might have come on. I'll have to check, but he played on for 20 minutes, and I remember them calling a back row move, and I'm in a scrum, looking back, guys, he doesn't even know where he is. And I'm saying this in 2009. So I'm saying this, he doesn't know where he is. Don't call any back row moves that involve him. He doesn't know where he is. And he went off after 20 odd minutes. Now, the risk of him getting a secondary concussion was huge because he was almost punch drunk. He was almost, cognitively, he didn't know where he was. So the secondary concussion, I think I heard the stats that secondary concussion before the first one's healed is a 50% chance of, life-changing damage or death. Right? Huge. And this was playing for Wales. This is playing for Wales in the new era, and he plays on. We fly back. He stays. He's ill. He's sick afterwards, and he stays in all night. We all go on the beers. We fly back home from Chicago the next day. He gets the call. One of the Lions boys gets injured out in South Africa. He gets the call, flies out to South Africa. Then I want to say the Wednesday or the Thursday, they CAT scan him, give him a brain scan. He flies home the next day, because his brain, the damage was very apparent. And I'm thinking, well, he played, he was visibly knocked out. He was out. Yeah. There's no other way you couldn't dress it up as anything else apart from a big concussion that this guy's had at the time. You couldn't disguise that. It was so plain. And yet he played on, and the brain damage was there to see days later, the damage that had happened to his brain. Yeah, he was, he played on, which was, it's like someone running into oncoming traffic, man. It's dangerous, and that's one anecdotal story, and there's lots of others. There's lots and lots of others stories like that out there, and it's just it's not fair. He's a human being, and then Ryan's part of the claim, and he's struggling with early onset dementia as well, and he did a very heartfelt sort of report in the papers as well when he came out with that.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Ian. I'm conscious of time. I've kept you for long enough, and I do appreciate you joining us. I just want to get your thoughts before you go on Wales. So it's the Six Nations next week, playing Scotland at a sellout Principality Stadium. Ian, how do you feel about Wales going into the Six Nations campaign? Because there's been a lot of talk about the inexperience of the squad. There are 5 uncapped players in the squad. The average age is 25. People saying that it looks a bit wooden spoony because of the lack of experience. But I think Gatland realises that now is the time to rebuild. How do you feel about Wales going into the Six Nations then? Do you think we can compete and do better than people say, or do you think it is going to be a bit of a struggle?
Yeah, I think it all points towards, if you analytically, if you're looking at it, you think it will point towards a tough tournament for us. It would be we're up against it. Where the odds are sort of favouring. I'm not sure what the bookies are saying so far, but Scotland first game could be huge, right? And the Six Nations, the massive amount about momentum and confidence. Now, getting out of the blocks and getting a win against Scotland will be massive for us. We're going to England the next week. We're going to, we're off to Twickenham, so that'll be huge. Getting out there. If we have a poor performance and a loss against Scotland, and the mindset and the momentum going, then going to Twickenham, then it's a real long tournament. So getting out of the blocks, because England are not they've got great players, but they haven't played well as a team for a long while. They haven't been consistent. No. They're not the dominant team that they once were at times. And they could beat anyone on their day in the world, but they're not the dominant, consistent team. But we've got a big job against Scotland, and Gatland, whereas going into that World Cup, I had a bit of belief in that, thinking he's had them for 3 months away from all the politics of Welsh rugby and all the negativity. He took them away up to Switzerland and Turkey or whatever he was. And I know what he can do when he has those players on their own. He can instill confidence and belief and condition into them. Now, he's got a new group of players now. He's got a good proportion of a new group of players. Now, whether he had enough time with that new group of players to mould them quick enough into that team, we'll see. If anyone can do it, Gatland, is a master, but it's a huge, huge ask. And again, all on this Scotland game. We get out the blocks flying. We have a win against Scotland, gain momentum and confidence, and combinations work. And about keeping us fit, because I think our 15 would probably look pretty decent. But, George North scared everyone the other week. And if a few players drop out, and then it's that depth we're talking about, it's going to be tough. We've got Ireland away, 2 weeks after. That's 2 massive teams. And then a French team that I believe, I wanted to see in the World Cup final. It's just gone. And then Italy to finish. So it's, again, I think it's a World Cup final for us against Scotland, because, if we blow that, we come out of it with a lack of confidence, and that'll affect it'll be a domino effect throughout the tournament. But if we come out, we put a huge performance in, then anything can happen. You can go up to England. Gatland's been there lots of times and turn them over. The confidence you get, as long as people stay fit, there's a chance. But again, I'll reassess after the Scotland game. But at the minute, I'd say it's a big ask for the whole thing. But it's the belief in that squad and what Gatland can do with them, and how we can make them believe, and big things can happen.
It's the first step of a 4-year cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've got to remember that as well. It is that. So I don't think there's as much pressure on Gatland in that way, because we know what we've got, and we're quite. You can analyse it and go, well, okay, well, he's got youngsters that are starting out on their journey. I think 25 is young internationally, so there's a lot to learn in that environment. It's a pressure cooker. So he is on a new cycle, so there's not much pressure. But how good would it be? Get a win against Scotland, get a huge performance against England, and then whatever happens in that Ireland French game, because they're two of the best teams in the world at the minute, and then finish it off. So these first 2 games are very important to to how it goes.
I think 3 wins would be a great return for me. I think if we could get 3 wins out of it,
Oh, it'll be huge. Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be huge. And I'm just trying to think where it's going to come. We got France home, all right, which in years gone by you would say, we can take France at home. We can do that, But Sean Edwards just has had that bit of X factor with him, hasn't he? He seems to have solidified them in a way that they win games they would have lost in the past.
It's a mindset thing, isn't it, with France now, which they didn't have before.
Yeah, exactly that. They've become a championship winning team all of a sudden. And again, it's not all Sean Edwards, but I think he's added that few percent that have that strength and that belief maybe, and hard edge maybe in defence and areas where they would just be going crazy. The French, the arms they go up in the air and they go a bit crazy. He's given them that consistency, I believe. So it makes them a very tough team to beat now.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay, Ian, let's get your predictions. Where are Wales finishing in the Six Nations, and who's going to win it?
I'd say, do you know what? I haven't looked properly at. I know where we're playing and our route, but I haven't looked properly at the other team's route yet to see what their run is. Their first, second, third game, to see what momentum they can get. But I think, with my heart, I want Wales. I say third, but I think fifth.
Yeah, I think that's.
I think fifth, but my heart says third, but I think fifth. I think France will win it, with Ireland very, very close.
Great, lovely stuff.
Yeah, and it could be Ireland or France, but I think France might nudge it, because they were, the disappointment of not progressing further in their own World Cup. I think that might drive them.
No, I agree. If it was either going to be Ireland and France, I completely agree. Ian, thank you so much. You've been a fantastic guest. I really appreciate you giving up your time to join us on this Thursday night. All the best. Best wish to the family, and take care.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye now.
Boys.
There we go. Ian Gough. That was an interesting chat, Gav.
It was, yeah. It was, and it was kind of his insight into when the merger, the Newport Gwent thing happened was quite interesting, I thought, because, I think at that point, Dragons lost the Gwent support. I remember around that time, and and I've said this before, Eberville Wetherspoon's full of Dragon shirts, not Dragon shirts, Osprey shirts, and still
Ospreys,
is.
Ospreys, yeah.
And still is,
Yeah.
it's like, I wear Dragon stuff and around Eberville and people look at me like I'm mad, it's...
Yeah, Ospreys have a huge following in Gwent, but a lot of that was because of the Galacticos and the fact they had the majority of the Welsh squad, and people just want to, jump on the bandwagon, cling to success, don't they? If I was the Dragons, everyone would be Dragons fans, wouldn't they? So.
I went to school in Merthyr, and everybody was Liverpool fans at the time because people follow the successful teams, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad Ian joined us because, like I said, I really liked him as a player. Really uncompromising. Like you said earlier, tough bastard lot. We are craving out at the Dragons now, especially since Will Rowlands are gone. And he's a good pundit as well, Ian Gough. I do quite like his punditry.
Yeah. And I think the game is changing, and second rows are becoming more athletic, and occasionally you just want somebody who's going to hit every ruck and hit every tackle, and every ruck is going to be like a trainer's hit it, and every tackle is going to feel like you run into a minibus because they just are bastards. And and I think that's kind of disappearing in players like Ian Gough and Mark Jones, who we talked about, who played for Neath, the number 8. That's a dying breed of just blokes who there's no fancy. No one's going to want a sticker of Mark Jones or of Ian Gough because they know those kind of players. But rugby lives and dies on those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, good stuff. I enjoyed that chat with Goughy. Okay, let's get into some news then. Unfortunately, shit news really. Ryan Woodman, he's set for a spell on the sidelines after suffering a serious thumb injury against the Sharks on Sunday. Really disappointing this because whenever he's played for us this season, he's taken his opportunities. He's looked really good, Gav. So this is a bit disappointing, isn't it?
I think he's a great player.
Yeah.
I think he's been the standout young player for us this season.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wish him a speedy recovery. In other news then, the Wales under-20 squad, that's been named. So there are 6 Dragons in the squad. Guess who's captain? Harry Ackerman, a Dragon. So that's good news, isn't it? Ryan Woodman unfortunately misses out, but he is replaced by his fellow teammate, Harry Ackerman. So I'm pleased for him. And he's being joined by Hugh Anderson, Harry Rees-Weldon, Walker Price, Jordan Morris, and Nick Thomas. Congratulations to those. And also the Dragons Academy and Newport RFC coach Sam Hobbs, who's helping out with our defence, as you know. He's also joining the Wales under-20s coaching team. He's going to help out with the forwards. So congratulations to those guys. Another congratulations to the Dragons women under-18s who made it 3 wins out of 3 after a 22-17 win over Cardiff at the Arms Park. It's nice to see one Dragons team get a win over Cardiff, isn't it? So fair play. Well done to the girls of Gwent. Not such good news for the boys, I'm afraid. So Dragons under-18s fell to a 64-7 defeat to the Scarlets under-18s in the regional age grade championship of Parker Scarlets this week. So commiserations to them, and hopefully they'll bounce back soon. So that's the news roundup. And Gav, it's time for your Gwent rugby roundup. What has been happening?
Well, not lots this weekend because it was a cup weekend predominantly. But in the Premiership, there was rugby played. Top of the table clash between Llandovery and Ebbw Vale. Llandovery edged that 17-15. So that's much strengthening Llandovery's position in the league. Newport also played. They beat Aberavon 27 points to 10. So in the Premiership, currently Llandovery are top and they are pulling away. Ebbw Vale are second, but Llandovery and Newport have games in hand against them. Newport are third, Pontypool in 5th. Their points total hit by the earlier cancellation against RGC and the subsequent points removal. Then cup games make up the majority of others. In the Championship Cup, so for clubs at that level and the level below, the Division 1, Bedwas beat Brecon 36-17, so they go into the next round. In the Division 3 Cup, so for the sides around Division 4 and for second teams of sides at a higher level, Colwyn Bay beat Rumney 33-15. Hell of a journey that for the boys from Rumney going all the way up to Colwyn Bay. A lovely trip up the A470, I'm sure that was for Rumney. And then Blaenau, also another trip to Nant Conwy, second 15. Blaenau beat them 34-7. Now, a very close friend of mine, Kev, is from Llanrwst with Nant Conwy base, and I can remember getting painfully drunk with Nant Conwy rugby team in a pub. I think it was called the Bull in Llanrwst, and we put the David Yuan song Amor o Hyd on the jukebox in the Bull 20 times in a row. it was quite the night. And then in the Division 4 Cup, New Panteg beat Gwynedd 2017. And this is a result that kind of sticks out for me. So Newport Saracens won 33-15 against Maesteg. The fact that Maesteg are playing down in the lower levels there. You know, and I remember Welsh internationals playing for Maesteg. You know, Chico Hopkins went on 2 Lions tours. Maesteg boy. It's just mad to see them down there. But we also have another bit of Gwent rugby news. So from our friends at the Official Supporters Club, they're saying about the Dragons All-Stars, which is a mixed ability team. They have an Anglo-Welsh fixture this Sunday at Risker RFC against Longlevens, which I believe are a club from Leicestershire, might be Herefordshire.
Gloucester,
Gloucester, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're playing
Gloucester way.
They're playing Longlevens mixed ability side at Risker, 2:30 kickoff on Sunday. And Christine Hyde, who is one of the mainstays of the Supporters Club, is marking his 25th appearance for the team on the eve of the 17th anniversary of his kidney transplant, which was donated by his father. You know, that's remarkable.
Lovely stuff. Yeah.
You know, and the All-Stars have also very nicely offered if I would like a game for them, that I would be welcome as well. So, and as I said,
are you going to take him up on that offer, Gav?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's
good man. Good man.
Well, I said I wanted to play a game of club rugby in Wales. I think that might be. Well,
yeah.
I have a ridiculous plan that I am developing that I will share, and so I some of the listeners of Paul might know. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine died from skin cancer, and as a result, I did a charity match, played 2 games in 24 hours, raised $4,500 for Melanoma UK, with help from like Lee from Blood and Mud and Sam Larner and lots of other guys who helped and played. And I'm planning something similar, so I will keep listeners
excellent
about that, because I am definitely retiring. Definitely.
You keep saying that, but you're playing this bloody weekend again, aren't you?
I am. I'm starting at hooker.
Hooker? For God's sake. Oh, dear. You just need to say, sorry, guys, I'm retired. You keep getting dragged into... You keep saying to me, I'm not playing, I'm retired, I'm retired. It's like, oh, I'm playing this weekend.
Oh,
you love it, don't you? You love it.
I really do, yeah.
Yeah, I know you do. Okay, is that it, Gav, for the Gwent Rugby
Roundup?
Roundup?
Yeah, it was just cup games this weekend.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's talk about it then. Goughy touched on earlier, the Sharks game. So there's going to be no European knockout rugby for the Dragons. They were beaten 29-9 by the Sharks at a very wet and windy Rodney Parade. It was pretty bloody awful, to be honest. Well, it was a bit of a storm. So fair play to those who turned up. It was 3,000 odd, something like that. So fair play to those, because it was bloody horrific. Dragons led for most of the first half, but Dane Black and Jared Ross had blew chances before Jaden Hendrickson and Oxley Niche barged over just before half-time. Kai Evans kicked Dragons to within 3 points, but Gerban Grobler, LaRue Roots and Werner Koch all crossed late to inflict a harsh scoreline. So, Gav, there we go then. No more European knockout rugby. It was a game we had to win. We failed. What was your take on that game?
Well, so as I alluded to earlier, I did an instant reaction for the Wrap social media, and I described it as being very Dragonsy.
You can say now a lot about many games this season.
Yeah,
Couldn't you?
I also quoted the disability rights activist Helen Keller in the same conversation, but
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
talked about
That's interesting.
talked about optimism, but yeah, it was very Dragonsy, wasn't it? We looked great. I thought briefly Jared Rosser had scored the greatest try in the history of all rugby.
I know.
And at which point the game should have been cancelled, because what would have been the point of continuing? But then the referee, honestly, I get it, but come on, mate. Don't. Why are you spoiling that? That's the greatest try ever scored, and you've ruined it. And
But
then
Gavi wasn't a try, was it? He did groundy. He jumped on top of
no,
it. You couldn't give that. Do you think it should have been given that try?
well, right.
No.
Do I think it should have been given? Yes, it should have been given. Was it a try? No. But would be my take on it. But again, and I'm going off on tangents here slightly. You know the film Encanto. You know that song about too much pressure, drip, drip. Well, that's what happened in the end.
Yeah.
We had pressure, but we didn't apply it. And then when they got pressure, it was like a vice, and they wouldn't know. And like Grobler, the second row. You know, he is quite the specimen, isn't he? So athletic.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I don't know about you, Gav, but I said this on that podcast. I don't think that scoreline was a true reflection of that game.
No.
Because I thought that for large periods of that game, we went toe to toe with a very strong and physical Sharks team that included, World Cup winners in there. And let's not forget as well, 69 minutes gone, we was only 12-9 down. We were still very much in the game. But the problem was once now Lockie was up, is it Grobler? Grobler, yeah. Once he scored that try then on 70-odd minutes, it did kind of kill the game.
Yeah.
And then those last two tries then, they were so soft, really soft, weren't they? And it made the scoreline look far worse than what it was. But
and it was a bit like the Bulls game and the original Sharks game. Not the Bulls, Lions.
Lions, I know what you mean,
when we played shit or bust rugby, basically. And we're thrown her about. They run it back at us. I think they were good performances. I will say it because I've said on the obverse previously. For Leon Brown held his head.
He did all right. Who did you consider he was up against? That's a very formidable opponent. He did all right.
I think he held his end up in the scrum there. I thought, and I was having this conversation with Lee from Bloodman, and he said, Harry Ackerman looks a player, and I totally agree. Was he 18, 19? He did not
19,
care.
I think.
He was giving Lucanio Arm a hard time, which is fairly impressive. A 19-year-old kid giving a World Cup winner, a previous World Cup, a hard old time. But then, there were definite weaknesses for me, and we don't like being negative about the Dragons because that's not what we're here for. But a few players, I think, were not at the races. Would you agree there, Jamie?
Yes, I would. But for me, I think there was two key moments, and it happened in the first half that really swung momentum, I think. So that Jared Rosser try. It's funny because, like I said, I was at Rodney Parade, we watched it. I had Jason Forster next to me, former Newport and Dragon legend.
Mm-hmm.
When he touched down, we both looked at each other and went, because it just didn't look like from where we were that he had probably grounded it. And then when you saw it on the big screen, because even after they took the conversion, which a lot of people didn't understand, that rugby has changed now. So it used to be that you had to take the conversion from not to review it. Once the conversion be taken, you can't review it, but it's changed now. So even if the conversion is taken, they can still review it and go back. So a lot of people didn't quite understand that. But I knew he wasn't going to be given because I could see from my seat where I was that he had not properly grounded it. And that was a huge moment. It was so frustrating because he did all the hard work. And it was Dane Blacker. He throws that ridiculously loose pass to Lucano Am. He boots it upfield. He did so well to track back, gather the ball, beat those two defenders, the pace he showed. Then he did all the hard work. But it was a carbon copy of what we saw against Cardiff, wasn't it? He had more time than he realised to put it. all he had to do was to put his hands on the ball. I know it's easy for me to say
Oh,
because I'm not about it, but he had time to just. I don't think he needed to dive on the ball like that. Just
if
to put hands
if
on
he
it.
put a finger backwards on the ball,
Yeah.
it would have been given. It was frustrating. It was but is that not the case of being a Dragons fan right now? No, not always, but right now we are a very frustrating team because we can go toe to toe with a team full of South African World Cup winners and hold our own, and then we'll just crumble. And what we can't deal with, well, I think there's two elements. When we have the foot on the throat, we don't press it hard enough, and when we are under pressure, we crumble.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other key moment was Goughy scoring that try right on the stroke of half time. And I'm sat there thinking, just hold out now. I know they were hammering away in our 22, and you could feel that they were going to score. And then when he went over, that was a bit of a it was a bit of a sucker punch there. But a really frustrating game. Like I said, I don't think this was a bad performance, but obviously, we were right in the game, 69 minutes. But then, of course, once they score that try, and then the wheels come off, don't they? So, Martinez gets a yellow card. Our discipline sort of goes
we were lucky not to get a yellow card prior to that, though, because I think we understood it's a drip, drip, drip of pressure. And, Martinez is not a thinker, bless him.
No.
He's a good scrummager. He is not a thinker. Neither is Tame Basham. It's. But I thought the back row worked really hard.
They did, yeah. It was just those tries at the end that made the scoreline look worse than what it was, and it did make it look harsh. But I got to be honest, I'm really disappointed and frustrated with our European campaign because it started so well. We got 5 points against Ireland there, and we should have beaten Poe. We should have beaten. We were beaten right at the end. But you're thinking, actually, we got a bonus point out of that. So that puts us in a good position on 6 points. Then you go to Zebra and you're thinking, well, let's get the job done here. We know Zebra improved. We've spoken about Zebra a lot. They got good players. We knew it was going to be a tough test of banana skin.
But we should have
didn't turn up in it. We should always be beating Zebra. I don't care what anyone says. I know a lot of people are saying Dragons, on the same level, worse than Zebra. In my mind, these are one of the teams we should always look to be beating and targeting Zebra. And even though they've improved, these are just those the games we got to win. We didn't turn up for the second half. And then we end up in a situation through results elsewhere where we have to beat the Sharks. And the Dragons struggle under pressure. So if we have to do something, if we have to win a game, it's highly unlikely we won't. I wanted us to go into our Sharks game, not having the pressure.
Having already qualified.
Do you know what I mean? Like the Ospreys. So they had a brilliant win in South Africa, absolutely superb. But that was a free hit for them in some ways because they'd already qualified. It's not the end of the world for them if they lost, but fair play to them, brilliant result. But for us, it was just deeply disappointed. And I have to say, when the European fixtures were announced in pre-season, I looked at that pool, and bear in mind 4 teams come out, and I thought, we'll qualify. It did not enter my mind that we won't qualify from that pool. Are you surprised, Gav, that we haven't made it? Or?
Well, I thought we would qualify. I thought we would be dying now because, not wanting to be a man of, stereotypes, but French teams don't travel well. So I thought we'd beat Ireland, I thought we'd beat Zebra, and I thought we could get something out of Sharks. And I thought we'd probably lose at Poe because, it's they do well in the top 14 and it's a hard place to go. So, but it was disappointing. But this season has been disappointing, hasn't it? Maybe, now, we're about halfway through the season. Maybe we went into it, you and I, I'm thinking, rather than Dragons, you and I went into it perhaps a little too optimistic.
And that's very unlike me. That is very unlike me. But I did. I looked at the fixture scheduling, and I thought Sharks were going to be the toughest opponent, if I'm being honest. I thought that'll be the one. But I thought, well, if we've already qualified by then, or we need to just get a point out of it, it won't be so bad. But once we went into that game knowing that we had to win, it was always unlikely that we wasn't going to, wasn't it?
But I think we went, you and I went into the whole season optimistically, not just Europe.
I know.
So, we judges of nothing.
No. Before we wrap up, I just want to say this one thing now. So I was at the game, as you know, and I met the co-owners for the Dragons. Okay, so I met David Buttress in person. We've had in the pod, but I met him in person. I met David Wright. I also met Paul Turner, who's there as a consultant, of course, and Jason Forster was there. I was up in the director's box. And what I would say to supporters...
Just name drop there, Clang.
I won't tell you, I'm not going to tell people how I got there. It's nothing to do with Buttress either, because everyone keeps saying you're Buttress's best buddy. It's not true. I wish I was, but it's not true. I'm not. So I'm going to say something now, which is going to really annoy Dragon supporters. And it's the same old story that we've heard a million times, okay? We have got to be patient, okay? Because... And look, I understand if I was listening to this thinking, oh, come on, Jay, we've been waiting, we've been patient for the past 10, 15 years. But let's not forget, these guys have been in charge now since September, okay? We've got to be patient because we are in really good hands with these guys. Now, I've had a chat to them, Gav, right? There is a plan in place for this club, okay? I can't say, because obviously a lot of it was off the record. There is a plan in place. They are fully aware of the challenges of this club. And believe you me, they are just as frustrated with the season and the results as we are as supporters. Because there was a lot of effing and jeffing going on in that director's box about that result afterwards and about the season as a whole. They are deeply frustrated. They want to make this work. They're very passionate. They're very committed. And I can tell you, they are determined to turn things around. And we as supporters... I'm going to say, we've got to be patient and let these guys do what they have to do to turn it around. Now, there's going to be some changes on the field and off the field. There may be one or two, I would say, unpopular decisions, okay? But they have got to rip it up and start again. Now, I believe you me, these guys are really determined to do that. And I'm glad I've seen it from the other side now, because the things that we say at games about, the front five, certain players and all this, they say it as well. They are fans. Like I saw it from the other. They are just like us. They're fans, and they want the best for this club. So I'm convinced even more now, after spending time with these guys, that we are in the right hands. And unfortunately, it is another patience game, I'm afraid. I hate saying it to Dragon Sports because we've heard it a million times, but we're in good hands now, Gav. I generally believe. When you compare to other boards and other previous owners, I feel that we are finally in good hands, but I'm afraid that we are just going to have to ride this out and let the guys do what they got to do and make those changes. But I'm afraid we are going to have to be patient about that.
I would totally agree. From our conversation with David Buttress, it's a bloke who's in, he's a Gwent man. And when I discovered he spent half his time in Ebervale, I became even more a fan of his. But, it's...
Yeah.
These are people who invest. And the thing is, you don't put money into rugby to make money because, if you are planning to do that, there's no money. But, these are people who want the best for our club and for their club.
And David Wright, who's probably not as public as David Buttress and putting himself out there. Now, he's a man of Gwent. He's played for Pontypool Newbridge now. He's very passionate. He had a lot of strong opinions. About the game and about where the Dragons should be going. Like I said, I can't say it on this pod, but he's going to be a big driving force. I feel that he's going to be the main man. Like you'll see Buttress he's the public face. We all know and associate David Buttress with the Dragons, but I think the real driving force is going to be David Wright. And let's not forget as well, this is their money now that they're putting into the club. This isn't WRU money anymore. It was different in the past, but it was WRU money. It's different. When you're putting your own money into something, you want to see results. You want to make it work. I believe me, they are desperate to turn this around. They know the challenges. They share our frustrations as supporters, and they're determined to make it work. But like I said, we just have to be a little bit patient out and just ride out this very difficult storm that Welsh rugby, because we're all in the same boat. Welsh rugby is in this very difficult storm. We got to ride it out. So I just wanted to say that's all, because I've seen it from both sides now. I've seen it from the directors and I've seen it from supporters, and we all share the same goal. We're desperate to see the Dragons do well.
And I think if we're having this same conversation this time next year and there's no green shoots, then we can all start getting a bit angsty. But right now, I think we just have to wait, and we have to wait, and the green shoots will be small and they will be very slow to rise, but they will come. I've no doubt about that as well.
Yeah, it's the hope that kills you. I know that. I'm fully aware of that. And we as Dragons fans, we have suffered more than any other You know, fans of the other regions can piss and moan about the dark times they've gone through, but no one has suffered like us. It's tough. It really is tough being a drag supporter.
If we weren't already called the Dragon's Lair, this pod should be called "It's the Hope That Kills You," because you know, it's
Blind Faith. Yeah, I know. There's so many different pod titles.
It's the most Dragons thing ever.
I know. So there we are. And no knockout rugby, as I said, for the Dragons, which is a shame because apparently, according to Chris Kerwin from the Argus, he said we could have had Bay on at home, which would have been a nice little money spinner for a start. You know, a little bit of boost of income, and it would have given support something to look forward to, knockout rugby. And now, I guess the aim for the rest of the season, Gav, is to be trying to avoid finishing bottom of the URC because. You know, I said this on the Rapport as well. The Sharks are not a good team. Yes, they've got world-class players and they've got World Cup winners. But as a team, I don't think they're particularly good. But at some point, you do expect them to pull away from the bottom. They're not going to stay bottom for the rest of the league. I can tell you that now. And we are probably going to get dragged at the bottom. But for us now, it's trying to salvage this season and not finish bottom, but it's looking quite difficult when you see the fixtures we got coming up. I mean, our next game is Glasgow away, and that terrifies me considering the batterings they've given us over the years. Yeah,
we have to beat them just because I can't cope with Johnny.
I know, but you look at our fixture list, though, Gav. Right? So it's Glasgow away, then it's Ulster away. We got the Bulls at home. Bulls are flying; they're a really, really good team. Now we got Zebra at home. No excuses. Got to win that one. I'll always say that. We got to beat Zebra at home. Benetton away is going to be very difficult. They're a proper serious team now. Excellent team now. They've really turned things around. Which that's why I'm hoping Dragons could do one day. Because remember when Benetton used to be a laughing stock? Remember when they used to keep losing all the time? And look at them now. Why can't that be us? Why can't that be the Dragons? One day I will dream to see it.
It will be.
Will it though? I don't know. Oh, I wish. That's the dream anyway, to turn things around. And then we got Connacht at home. They're a good team. Stormers at home. Ospreys away. Could be being played in Bridgend because they seem to be playing in Bridgend a lot lately. They're playing their European last 16 game at Bridgend, aren't they?
Is Bridgend even really their region?
Yeah. Leave Swansea Bridgend, didn't it? That's, yeah.
Yeah, I always thought Bridgend was Celtic Warriors, and then most of the Celtic Warrior stuff got swallowed up into
but it's sort of got compassed into the Ospreys region then, didn't it?
Did they? I thought it was all swallowed up by the Blues. Not Cardiff.
Because Ponty were Celtic Warriors, and then when they went, sort of they came under Cardiff Blues then, and they were Cardiff Blues at the time, and that did not go to plan. And then we got the Scarlets. Yeah. And then we got the Scarlets at Judgment Day in the Cardiff City Stadium. So you look at those fixtures, and again, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I am trying to be positive, but I am doing that thing I go through, Gav, when I look at fixtures and I think, I don't know where the next win is coming from, particularly.
Right. So maybe I've had a bump on the head this week, but we could win 4 of those. Conversely, we could also win none of them. And that's the problem. So we could, he says, we could beat Connacht at home. We could beat Zebra at home. We could beat Ospreys away. We could beat Scarlets at Judgment Day. So we could win 4.
Yeah.
But conversely, we could lose all 4 of those as well, and all the other games.
Yeah. So fingers crossed, anyway. But that's the fixtures and the schedule now is looking. It's going to be pretty difficult. But I think Dragons now just got they have to now fully concentrate on the URC and let's try to salvage some pride and not finish bottom in the league. Yeah, because that would be nice if we managed to stay above the bottom when they're.
And I don't want to single out players or anything else, but we need to work out a thing for 10 because I know Angus has been injured, and
so I spoke to Angus. Yeah, I spoke to Angus on Sunday. I met him in the Sharks game, and he told me he would be available for the Glasgow game, and that's very good news. And look, you know how much I like Will Reid, the Baytander young Ted. He did struggle, I'm afraid, on Sunday. Some of his kicking in his difficult conditions, and I have absolutely no problem with him putting boot to ball because in those conditions, that's exactly what you have to do. Yeah. As much as people don't like seeing, kicking, that's what he had to do. Unfortunately, Gav, I thought some of his kicks were aimless, and I don't think he controlled the game very well at all.
And it was about halfway through that game, and I was watching on TV at home, And my wife's not interested on my views on rugby, so I was telling the dog. But I've worked out what Will Reed's issue is. That he's got all the talent, he's got all the ability. What he doesn't have is game management at the minute.
That'll come, Gavin. He's a young.
Yeah.
We should remember how young he is. So hopefully that will come. Like I said, I am a big Will Reed fan, but to me, I felt that he lacked that game management and control at 10. And some of his kicks were aimless, as far as I concerned. But hopefully he bounced back, and hopefully Angus O'Brien will be back for the Glasgow game, as he said. Right then, I think we'll wrap it up there. We are planning to be back next week. Hopefully, we'll have Chris Kerwin from the South Wales Argus join us just to have a chat about the Dragons and the season so far. So he's very busy at the moment covering Newport County. We've got Man United, of course, at Rodney Parade this Sunday. I'll be there. It's going to be a great occasion. Looking forward to that one. But yeah, we are going to have Chris hopefully next week. So thank you to Ian. Thank you, Gav, as always. Been an absolute pleasure. We will be back next week and we'll speak to you all soon. Goodbye.